If you've been playing card games, you've probably noticed a certain shift of sorts. Games all around us, as long as they're PvP, are dying out, I want to say. Started with Elder Scrolls Legends, we had Artifact, went Legends of Rune Terra, the PvP side of course, and it's kind of starting to feel like there's a graveyard that's just slowly filling up with all these dead card games. These games aren't dying because they're bad. They're not dying due to a lack of quality. They're dying because it feels like fundamentally, it's really, really hard to sustain card games. The main problem, from what I can tell, is kind of the unsustainable economic model. Things are either too profitable or they're too expensive. And the other one is a kind of cultural shift. I don't want to put everything on TikTok, but clearly something's happening to the brain of gamers in recent years. And I feel like that's part of why card games are harder to get into than ever before. So let's start at the top. The first big one had to be shut down in 2019. The earliest victim was Elder Scrolls Legends. I didn't play that. I know somebody from the Rune Terra community, Silverfuse, played that game a lot. He always had a lot to say about it. I've always been interested in trying the game, but as soon as a game has a notion of we're gonna stop updating this game, we're gonna stop printing cards, we're gonna stop pushing out updates, I'm kind of done with it. And that's as a content creator. I can't make content when there is no new content, right? I can't just keep recycling old ideas. Some could argue that that's what I'm doing right now with Rune Terra, but that's not the point. And then the second one is Gwent. And this is a bigger one. I played Gwent in the beta and I really liked it. And for some reason, I just couldn't get back into it when it was fully released. I don't know why, but in 2023, that was the next game that was officially shut down, or rather CD Projekt Red had announced that they will stop printing cards for that game. So that brings us to Rune Terra, the next big one, the biggest one even. Now don't get me wrong, Elder Scrolls and Gwent, Witcher are huge franchises, and that's what probably most of their fan base comes from. But that, I don't want to say pales in comparison to Riot Games, but that's like a behemoth, right? Like being funded by Riot Games, having that team behind you at the time meant, okay, that's a lot of quality on the game, that's a lot of polish, and that's a lot of expanding on what they already have going on. This is 2020, right? We know better. Riot Forge happened. We know that Riot, if something is unsuccessful or they stop caring, they will just cut the product. They will just kill it off immediately. Huge shame, by the way. Riot Forge was amazing. I hope they bring it back in some capacity. But anyway, being backed by Riot Game kind of had like this added trust or something in the product. That's all behind us, and I'm specifically talking about PvP. I'll get to Path of Champions, aka the roguelike deck building mode for Rune Terra later. But what we're at now is that we're seeing a decline in the biggest of the genre, some of the biggest of the genre, Marvel Snap and Hearthstone. And especially Marvel Snap, if we look at stuff like Steam charts, it's just kind of dropping off massively. And Steam charts doesn't tell the whole story. It is a game that's best enjoyed on phone. I actually play Marvel Snap casually. I play it a good amount. In fact, I'm a pretty high collection level, and I play that game fully casual. I play when I'm on the toilet, I play when I'm waiting on the bus, I play when I have 5 minutes to spare, and it's perfect for that. But even I can't really look past scrolling through the Marvel Snap store and seeing some of these prices. So what happened with Marvel Snap, and why does it have that drop off currently? Now, there is this card in Marvel Snap called Kid Omega. Kid Omega is kind of like a unnoteworthy card. It's like a 2-mana 1/1 that says activate, destroy the next card you play. It's whatever. It's pretty good in some decks, but it's kind of whatever. The thing is, Marvel Snap sometimes has these events where they give out free cards. And that's great, because if you go through their store, you'll see a single card, one card, for $60 sometimes. And I know there are methods to get cards for free, but $60 for a single card, I'm out, bro. Like, I don't even need to look at that stuff anymore. I fell into like a trap of one of the Marvel Snap bundles very early on, where I was like, I can make content for this game. Never again. Anyway, what happened is, if we look at any other Marvel Snap event, they have like these alternate game modes, and then you can get points in those, complete specific quests for those. And if you do, you get resources, and you kind of go up a sort of, let's call them a battle pass, a sort of battle pass. And then once you reach a certain point, you know, after playing 20, 50 games, whatever, you unlock a free card. The thing with Kid Omega is, in that event, it was centered around High Voltage Overdrive, a limited time event. Now what happened, that card, Kid Omega, the free card that you were supposed to get, was placed so high on that battle pass, on the free track, that it was essentially unobtainable unless you got the paid version of that battle pass, or rather unless you spent gold/money on it. You had this free shiny reward if you played enough, and people very quickly figured out, I can't actually get this unless less I spent gold on the game. Everything that happening in Marvel Snap up until that point, that was kind of like the tipping point where people were like, wow, their greed knows no bounds. Now, is that bad? I don't know, kind of, but the point is, it's been leading up to that point. That's not like a one-time thing, right? And then we're moving on to the next big game, one that I have played a lot. It was my main card game before Rune Terra. It was the reason I got into card games. My good friend Raran still plays and shits on it. Hearthstone, of course. What else could it be? Possibly the one that completely revolutionized digital card games. What they're doing right now is Hearthstone is cannibalizing their own players. And this started in 2019 when Hearthstone Battlegrounds came out. Hearthstone Battlegrounds is the auto battling mode where, I don't know, just to give a quick recap of or rundown of what the game is. You purchase units. It's TFT. You know, we all know TFT. You purchase a unit, place it on the board, you re-roll the shop, you get other units that synergize with your units, and then you go against an opponent once your planning phase is over, and you hope your units are bigger than them. I think it's fantastic. As a matter of fact, don't tell anyone, especially Big Daddy Riot, because I'm kind of on their email list. I think it's better than TFT. TFT, I'm not a big fan. Anyway, auto battlers. So Hearthstone cannibalizing their own players is in 2019. The game was already kind of on a decline because you're never gonna recreate that 2014 insane amount of players hype and just streams tournaments that 2014 Hearthstone had. The fact that they had that is the reason that the genre arguably is so big. Anyway, Hearthstone Battlegrounds is taking players from its main game mode. And I think they took a few years even monetizing Battlegrounds properly. So it's really weird that in the same client, they have this more successful mode that is essentially the same thing, but they can't make money off of as easily. I'll put it like that. The other one that I want to briefly mention because it feels weird making a video like this and not mention it is Magic the Gathering. I think the online client, the online version is still profitable. It just really, this time I'm saying it for real, pales in comparison to its physical counter side. Physical card games are thriving. So, but to understand all that, we do have to go back to Hearthstone one more time, and that just simply impossible precedent that they set. It was high quality, free to play, constantly updated service, funded solely by massive, expensive expansions. I say expensive because I'm an idiot. Very often when a new Hearthstone expansion dropped, I would pre-order the pre-order bundle. It's like $80 and you would get, I don't know, 80, I don't know the exact numbers, 80 packs or something. You would get a few legendaries, a hero portrait. That sounds like a lot, like 80 card packs. Can you imagine getting that in real life? Like you buy a booster box, like that Riftbound booster box that I never got from Riot. That's like 36 packs, I think, most of the time. That's like 120 bucks. 80 card packs, it's kind of a lot. There's 5 cards in it. Point is, if you do that, you would have like 10% of the expansion unlocked. 50% maybe? Something like that you'd have unlocked. You get like 4 or 5 legendaries out of the 25, 30 that they print. These numbers might be off. I haven't played Hearthstone in a while. Anyway, the point is, $80 and you can barely play the deck you want. It's highly unlikely that you do not have the resources to play the deck you want after spending all that money. That's kind of where Rune Terra comes in. Rune Terra saw this and they said, we can do better. I remember the announcement trailer where they were like, yeah, we want to make a game where all cards are playable and we want to promote deck building. And to promote deck building, to make sure that people are allowed to be deck builders, you have to kind of give a lot of cards away for free or make sure that a big portion of that is available. And that's exactly what they did. Most of the Rune Terra collection was available if you play for a couple of months. As a matter of fact, most people notice that watch my regular Rune Terra content. I play Rune Terra so much, I am sitting on mountains of green essence. In fact, if they still printed PvP expansions, I could craft the three next expansions that would drop like 3 times each. I could craft a single expansion 3 times and do that 3 more times. That's how much I had. And can you imagine that in Hearthstone terms? Or like even in physical card game terms? They drop a new set and you just have so much backed up money, resources laying around that you could just craft every single card immediately. That's crazy. Where do they get their money from? Like Hearthstone clearly funded itself with card packs. How did Rune Terra do that? Well, that's the thing. They didn't. They were literally starving themselves off of resources. And eventually Riot noticed and they downsized the team from 100 people to 50 and from 50 to 20 and then from 20 to like the 2 people that are working on it right now. So this game, Rune Terra as well as Gwent, kind of proved that the core card game loop cannot pay for the constant development costs. And then I'm talking about servers, artists, balancing teams, new expansions. I don't have the exact number, but a single expansion for Rune Terra would cost around like, I think 1.5 million to 2 million. That's one expansion, one 3-champion expansion. That's like between 60 and 70 cards. And then probably like some art for tokens and stuff. That's insane. I cannot even fathom how a single expansion would be paid for by players. What is there even to spend money on? Nothing. And then it costs that much. Like, don't get me wrong, Rune Terra did a lot for Riot Games. It's the same as Arcane. Arcane is a fantastic show, and it was not profitable, but it did so much for the fan base and Riot Games as a company / product that they have. Those costs are kind of like ignorable. But with Rune Terra, I can't really say that, because what Rune Terra mostly did was be a fantastic card game, actually like keeping a roof above my head for 3 years, as well as expand on the lore. Eventually, the LOR team was simply forced to fold. They couldn't keep it up. I think from a company standpoint, it makes total sense if a game is bleeding money and they don't really have anything to show for it. I was in LA about 2 years ago now, a little less than 2 years. I talked to a person that still works at Riot. He's pretty high position. I talked to him and he was saying the same thing. It's like, yeah, we just really messed up the monetization. The monetization is awful in Rune Terra. I wish we had like a subscription model where every 3 months, every month you pay $20 and you get every single card from a new expansion. They would have made way more money. And I'm also kind of starting to understand why Marvel Snap has like these giant expensive bundles. It's just so the whales have something to spend money on. And whales will actually fund the game, not people that spend like $2, €2 here and there. That doesn't happen. So that is the first thing. That is the first economic trap. Just failure because you're losing so much profit by being too free to play. The second one is the opposite, is Marvel Snap and Hearthstone, and that is failure by alienation. These games resort to monetization that is so aggressive. You have to grind daily, you have sunk cost fallacies, you have paywalling progress like in Marvel Snap, so many cards release and individually they're all extremely hard to get. And this immediately sacrifices the player experience. Me, as a casual Marvel Snap player, I can feel it like really heavily every time there's like a cool deck that I want to play. I'm like, oh, I'm missing 3 cards. And there is no easy way to get them at all. It's either waiting by logging in a lot and hoping that the card, like the rotating card shop has that card available, or buying a card pack where you get 1 card for like some insane money from a pool of like 50 cards that I also don't have. Basically impossible. It leads to burnout and players just leaving the game. All that is to say, the reason card games around us are dying, the reason there is a graveyard that's slowly filling up, is because developers are learning that the digital model is simply unsustainable. On the other end of that stick is the physical card games, which is doing amazing. Like we saw Riftbound release recently, which I'll have a little bit more to say about soon, but it's all just going amazing. It's that instant gratification of buying a card pack in the store, opening it, seeing some shiny foil card. Everything is working out. On top of that, there are no server or free content needs. And actually, I think it ties in well right now if I just bring up Riftbound, because it's kind of like that parallel is right there, right? We have Rune Terra on one end and then Riftbound on the other. And it just kind of shows that the digital model was always fundamentally broken. They're abandoning this almost free-to-play model just for guaranteed card pack sales. And that's the thing. Card games need constant content updates to stay relevant. And it's exactly this constant change that builds the biggest player wall, because the sheer volume of cards that keep getting added make the game not only intimidating, but also expensive and also almost impossible realistically for a new player to catch up to existing players. Me, if I take a 2-month break from any of the card games that I play, I'll find that one of my favorite decks is completely irrelevant in the meta. It could be nerfed to the ground, it could be banned, and I will have no idea what matchups I'm playing against. So for all I know, my deck is like in a horrible position right now. And you compare this to something like League of Legends or Valorant, where yes, metas change, your champion gets buffed and nerfed, but it doesn't change the fundamental gameplay that you're experiencing. The map, the core mechanics, your champion abilities, they all stay the same. A returning player will know exactly what they're doing if they take an extended break. Whereas in card games, an entire deck or strategy can be immediately redundant by a single card release or even a patch. And yes, I need to bring up card rotation or different formats. Even card bans are kind of supposed to alleviate the problem. These are bandages on a bleeding wound for the entire genre. You can't put a small patch on an arm that's been severed at this point. That brings me to the next point, which is just the cultural shift in gaming. Blame TikTok. I may be getting a little too philosophical here, but I really think that just more modern digital culture, and by the way, just to be completely clear, I'm responsible for this too. I do that in my videos too sometimes. I just try to cater it, be more upbeat, be more TikTok brain. But the social media and the constant stimuli have kind of fostered this need for instant gratification. So if we then take strategic games like card games, they're slow, you need to think a lot, you need to do pre-game research, you need to build your deck, and then at the end of a game, if you win, that's your reward. It's all very delayed. You need to put in the work to get that reward. And then we look at I'll just take auto battlers as the example. You take the tactical games, the auto battlers, the roguelikes, they're fast, they're reactive, the decisions are made literally on the fly, and the information that you need is usually on the screen. So your dopamine hits are hard and they're frequent. And part of the big success is that there's a very low barrier to entry because the progress that you find in those type of games is defined by player skill as well. So a subscription model with access to all cards is something I haven't really seen done, digital CCG, but it is something that Rune Terra was apparently thinking about before it was too late. So when you really think about it, this is the biggest reasons that games like TFT and Hearthstone Battlegrounds are so successful. Instead of spending hours before the match building and understanding your deck and even getting the cards to build that deck, everything is in the client. The composition, the way you're building your deck is during the match. So when I'm playing TFT, I have this satisfaction just by being tactical and adapting to what's happening in front of me without having to do any homework, basically. I'm probably going to make another video on this, but that's also why I think roguelike deck builders are so interesting, like Slay the Spire, like Monster Train. I played a game called Deck Tamer recently. These are all games that take away the collection model entirely. So all you really have left is the gameplay itself. You start a run and that's what you do. That's all you get. Once you click go, that's 30 minutes to an hour of your time and you know exactly what you're getting. No acquisition, no card packs, just your skill. And I think this is why right now in Legends of Runeterra, Path of Champions is actually doing everything that Legends of Runeterra PvP couldn't. They kind of saw what was happening with the player base. Apparently, even during the height of PvP, only 25% of players were doing PvP and 75% was doing Path of Champions, which is their roguelike deck building mode. So it just goes to show that it's a good thing that the team of Runeterra saw that and they were immediately able to adapt that core gameplay experience into a full-fledged experience. And for the sake of this video, it shows that there are developers that see that the roguelike deck building, the offline experience is just doing way more and way better than CCGs are right now. I also want to quickly mention the Bazaar because Reynad, the creator of the Bazaar, originally wanted to make, I believe, a PvP card game as well and very quickly realized that it is just phasing out. All these games are failing unless you have a giant franchise back in it, which, you know, even the games that do have a giant franchise back in it are still failing. He recognized this shift and turned the game into an auto battler, and I think it's one of, if not the best on the market. It is phenomenal how well that game is put together. But I'm not gonna glaze the Bazaar too much. The gameplay, the core experience of Bazaar is amazing. Some of the decisions and the marketing, not so great. So that kind of brings us back to the two inevitable barriers for these kind of card games. It's that the free-to-play economics were a big trap. It was either go broke,
give him a big hand, guys, homeless dude,
or go predatory, and none of these are great player experiences because free-to-play, you're eventually not gonna have a game to play anymore, and the predatory, you simply can't even play the game because it's too expensive. And the other one is that the strategic gameplay just required way too much commitment to actually be able to enjoy the game. I guess maybe the concept of competitive card games isn't completely dead. The games are dying, but that core fundamental design has kind of just moved on to a different genre, a different niche, because the tactical fans have moved on to auto battlers like Battlegrounds or TFT, and the hardcore strategic fans have moved on to physical card games, which is amazing, by the way. It's a vibe to just sit in the big room, surrounded by nerds, all putting their cards on a table. It is something that you need to experience at least once if you're into card games. So I get it. It's just a fundamentally flawed economic design. I don't think digital card games are going to work. I would be very surprised if there is a PvP card game coming out in the near future that would actually succeed / blow everyone away with how fair it is to play as well as the game itself being sustainable. I can't think of anything, and I've been playing Runeterra and card games for a long time, and I think that it's just gone. So I think all in all, it's pretty safe to say that the death of card games is because of our increasingly fast-paced world. Thanks, TikTok.